if you're watching this and you're currently in another country and you are a South African, very, very important, and you relocated a while back or maybe recently, please listen carefully. Every expat should just be a little bit more cautious and mindful that you are vulnerable the moment you leave your country. The prevalence of scams via the SARS platform. Now, let me contextualize a little bit. Beloveds, hello. I'm going to record this while I cook because I might never tell the story. First things first, happy Sunday. I hope you're all eating delicious food on a Sunday. Sundays are for food and good food and rest and planning. Okay. So if you're watching this and you're currently in another country and you are a South African, very, very important, and you relocated a while back or maybe recently, please listen carefully because I was victim to a few scams abroad, but one particular one stands out, maybe two that I wanted to tell you about. And I think every expat should just be a little bit more cautious and mindful that you are vulnerable the moment you leave your country. So, first scam, if you leave the country and you are planning to be away for longer than 6 months, please make sure that you change, no, let me rather rephrase it this way. Please make sure that you either set up some kind of roaming something with your service provider, or you call maybe once every three months on your number using your South African number. You make an international call, or you just make peace with the fact that your number will be given away to someone else due to inactivity for up to 6 months. And I say this because I have been so humbled by my most recent expat experience. You'll see there's a couple of videos on this channel about it, but there's a lot of things I just took for granted or didn't prep or didn't plan or didn't consider because I'd never had to consider them. And to be fair, this was my first time abroad as an adult, not anymore having to hold somebody's hand, somebody giving me a step-by-step guide of what I need to prepare. And if I'm going to be honest, I think the downside of moving to a country that you're comfortable with, like I did in my case, is that perhaps you also have a false sense of comfort, false sense of like, you know what, this is my home, and then that kind of trickles into the prep. So please make sure that if you have any desire to keep your South African local number, then make sure there's some kind of activity that happens frequently via international business calls, or perhaps you're one of those people who come home anyway and have to use the SIM card regularly anyway, but please make sure to keep the SIM card active. The most obvious reason is it's such a schlep to have to change your SIM card, change your number, lose potential contacts. But the most important part of this, which is the gist of my video, is you're just far more vulnerable to scams. You're far more vulnerable to scams. So what happened to me is I didn't know that I needed to have some kind of activity on my number, and to be honest, I didn't really think about it because when I left the country, I was sort of open about the possibility of leaving for an extended period of time. The time frame wasn't clear, and I think that makes it better if you are, or rather let me put it this way, it is far more easier to plan and keep these things in mind if you know for how long you'll be away. In my case, it was definitely a year and a bit and potentially longer. So I didn't really factor this in. If you have different plans, please make sure to do this so that you and your number and your contacts on that said number are not as vulnerable to scams. Because what happened to me is we came back sooner than I had anticipated due to a job starting earlier than also planned, which is blessing in disguise in this economy. And I obviously had put now my South African SIM card on my phone, and it didn't work, and I was then notified by Vodacom that this number had been given to a new owner due to inactivity on my cell phone number. Unfair, irritating, inconvenience, but it makes sense. And it's probably written in some TNC that I didn't check. Fine, I get a new number. Luckily for WhatsApp is a third-party application, so your chats are saved, your contacts are saved. So a lot of my communication happens on WhatsApp, so it wasn't really a train smash. Fine, I changed my number. Maybe give it like a week. Maybe a week after I have this new number, I'm kicked out of WhatsApp. I no longer have access to WhatsApp. And the only way to get access to WhatsApp on the old number, the number that I had before I left for Germany, was to retrieve an OTP that they sent to you. They've got this 2-time authentication process, as you all know. But because the number was no longer mine, I didn't have this option. I make my peace with that. I cannot not be in communication with people. Being in communication with people, being reachable is something extremely important to me. So I almost immediately set up WhatsApp on this new number, knowing that my chats would be backed up and potentially my contacts as well. I do this and I send a quick message, like, you know, those broadcast messages to notify whoever can still see my messages that, hey, I've been kicked out of WhatsApp from my old number, I'm reachable here. It didn't click to me at that point that there was a connection between I've now been kicked out because I no longer have access to my old number. It seems obvious, but in the moment you're panicking. Fine, thank goodness I sent that broadcast message, because a couple of my friends then sent a message back and said, hey Dee, we were just talking this morning. I got really confused when I then got another message from your other number. What's going on? I explained the situation. They're like, this person's asking for money. It didn't even take 10 minutes. This person was already on my other WhatsApp and they were already, you know, they already had access to my contacts and they were already asking for money. And we're not talking small change. We're speaking about 2,000 to 3,000 rands. 3 people that I know of sent money. 1 was able to reverse the money and 2 were not able to reverse the money. I also had to reimburse 1 person because they literally sent their last. I have never felt so vulnerable, and I've been scammed before, but this particular one I think hit a nerve because WhatsApp seems so sacred and you have your contacts and your memories, and I've had the same number for a long time, probably a decade if not longer, and it just feels very violating, and there's this feeling of not being in control. And I'm making this video because there were lapses in there were gaps in the preparation for me to leave the country, which meant there were things that I just didn't consider, which left me far more vulnerable. Would I have been more susceptible to a scam? Who knows? I mean, these people are so sophisticated, but I did definitely get into a loop of like blaming myself. So that's the first thing I would please advise internationals. If you are going to go abroad for an extended period of time, please make sure your number situation is checked out. I also know friends who've become very vulnerable to this particular scam, even if they didn't leave the country. I'm really not sure how these guys get access to our numbers. There's been all kinds of conspiracy theories, you know, that maybe service providers sell these numbers to hackers. I don't know. I don't know what the story is, but make sure that you're safe because this thing has ripple effects. If you sent sensitive information on your WhatsApp like I did, then unfortunately that's also part of the risk, that these people then have access to other information, pictures. I mean, you have no control of what is then backed up. Pictures, chats, all kinds of things that you might have shared with people that you were talking to that is sensitive. This is not out there and you don't know how this person will use this information. So that's the first scam. The second thing, which I just experienced in the past 2 weeks, which has shook me to the core, is SARS. There's a prevalence of scams via the SARS e-filing platform. Now, let me contextualize a little bit. SARS is the South African Revenue Services, manages all our tax. For the most part, it's a state institution. Is it a state institution? I need to look into this. That is really good at the whole tax thing, right? If you're employed, you get taxed like a good citizen. I mean, you don't have a choice. And for the most part, if you work for an organization that does your taxes, which is usually the case, they deduct the necessary things from your payslip. Everything should check out, and in most cases, people don't get a refund from SARS at the end of a financial year. Right? I will put another link in the description. Hello, so Mama's busy doing her video. Oh, but that's fine. Hello. blankets. Recording while at home, literally. So, what I basically wanted to say is, I have never gotten a tax return from SARS because I was apparently paying the right amount of tax to SARS. My employer were making sure that they are calculating right. And to my knowledge, there are very few instances where people get refunds. I'll put another video below for people who want to familiarize themselves with that, because I don't want to, say the wrong information. But I know that the reason why people don't get tax refunds is because their taxes check out. Sometimes, unfortunately, your taxes then don't check out, and you then owe SARS and you have to pay them. I've also never been in this institution. All this to say, I have never really paid mind to, at this tax season where people are getting refunds, because for the bulk of my career, I've never gotten a refund. However, I was speaking to a cousin of mine, and she mentioned how I should be getting a refund because there was a gap in employment, because I left my former employer in 2022 and then went to Germany. So according to South African records, I have not worked between July 2022 and last year November, when I started my new job. However, she said, no, you should be getting a refund because there was a gap in employment. And this is one of the reasons why people get refunds. People who are maybe unemployed, or you've started a new job and there was a bit of a gap between the two jobs, something along those lines. I'll put a description somewhere here on my screen or redirect you to a link below. Anyway, I then am curious, right? Because she's like, no, you definitely owed money. I go check in, my e-filing. I have an app on my phone, one that I check once a year. I think we all do. We're all guilty of that. Check my e-filing. First red flag. I can't access my profile because my profile is connected to the number that was hacked into. The scam saga I was telling you guys all about, that's the number that's connected to my e-filing, or used to be connected to my e-filing. Or so I thought. Fine, I try nevertheless. Put in my username, put in my password. Obviously doesn't work. If you want to gain access to your profile and you don't remember your password, which can happen, you ask for e-filing to reset your password, which I did. Then e-filing gives you an option to send the OTP to either your number or your email address that you've got in your profile. I'm thinking the 079 number, that one I used to have, will pop up, but another number popped up, an 072 number that I've never ever seen in my life. I've never owned an 072 number. My alarm bells go off. I then attempt to call SARS, and to cut a very, very, very long story short, because it takes you so long to get somebody on the line. Tip for anybody who wants to call SARS and is too lazy to go to the branch, call first thing in the morning. Have your phone ready by 8 a.m. and phone. You will be in a queue already, because I think a lot of people know this tip, but it's definitely better than trying to call at any other time of the day. Anyway, after a couple of days of failed attempts to contact SARS, I'm stressed, but not really. Like, okay, somebody's number's in there. Whose number is it? Should I be concerned? Not really. Okay. Yeah, I should have been concerned. Fine, I finally get hold of somebody at SARS. They basically tell me that my profile needs to be reset. My contact details need to be updated. This can take up to 3 business days to fix. However, in the meantime, I wanted to get clarity on refunds, because now I'm a bit excited. I found out I might get money from SARS. Fine, the consultant then tells me that, yes, ma'am, you are due for a refund. In fact, we paid out 2 refunds. We paid a refund at the end of March, and we also paid a refund early July. At this point, stress would be an understatement. I am devastated, because I'm like, I never received any refund. So we don't talk enough about how difficult it is to balance your finances once you've relocated back into your country. Like, story and a video for another day, which I definitely will get into. So I'm just not in the best place financially, And just the thought of knowing that I was scammed out of thousands by somebody broke my heart. And the reason why I'm making a video about this is, unfortunately, I do think that international or expats, people who leave the country and go live somewhere else for a bit, you are far more vulnerable to these scams because because you usually don't have access to the number that you put in your profile. There is the option of putting an email address and having the email address be the preferred option. However, if somebody gets hold of your number somehow, like in the case of of me, where my number was given to someone else and maybe that person's a scammer, the person's going to choose the option of getting the OTP on the number if they access your profile. So by the time an email gets sent to you, if it ever gets sent to you, you would be you wouldn't even know. This would not be in your awareness. So expats, just get your things together, get your numbers together, check your e-filing regularly. I've definitely learned the hard way. And you're probably wondering why, what now? We've opened a digital fraud case via SARS. I had to obviously find out the account number that this money was paid into. I then had to get a letter from the said bank confirming that this account is not mine, that I'm not linked to this account in any shape or form. We had to open a case number via the South African Police Services. I also needed to do an affidavit. I mean, it's a long process. Then they will do their internal investigations and figure out what happened. If it's as straightforward as it seems, that I just was hacked and there's some kind of proof that I was not involved in the hacking, then I would get a refund. How long that process takes, I don't know. Whether I even will be successful in getting a refund, I don't know. It's a long, heartbreaking situation that, again, I feel like I could have avoided had I gotten this number thing, or had I had this number thing top of mind. And I was talking to a family member and saying that we just aren't prepared for these struggles because often you're the first one navigating them. You struggle set born free, or maybe you just don't know what questions to ask. You don't know what to look into, or you don't know what you need help with because you don't know that other people have gone through similar things, or there's just not enough of us who have navigated a similar professional journey. All I'm trying to say, and this is why I'm doing this video, is your information is so helpful. It helps the next person to avoid making similar mistakes. I feel like I've been in a series of just making unavoidable mistakes. Granted, digitalization comes with just being far more vulnerable to scammers, whatever way you look at it, no matter how careful you are. Unfortunately, we share our most vulnerable and important information with people, institutions. We don't know what those said institutions or people will do with the information. So, kuningi, and I wish I had watched a video like this 2-3 years back. It would have saved me, I think, a bit of money and a bit of stress. And even if I was then, a victim to a scam, I would have at least been comforted by the fact that I did everything in my power to protect myself. So please, expats, and leave, up and leave. Look into these things. Ask us. I'm sure there's other silly mistakes I've made. I'm definitely sure. I'll speak about them on this platform as well. But yeah, have a good week, have a scam-free week, and let's all hope and pray I get this money. Till next time, bye.